Did you know that by making a few tweaks to the title and subtitle of your articles, you could end up on page 1 of Google search results? It might sound impossible, it might sound magical, but there is no magic to it. It's just SEO or search engine optimization. And to talk about SEO, how to get many views, and how to build a brand for yourself as a writer, I have with me a very special guest, Dr. Derek Austin. Dr. Derek Austin is a physical therapist, also a full stack developer. He codes in JavaScript, HTML, and so many other languages I don't even know the names of. Basically, Dr. Derek is a super talented person who wears many hats and who has so many different interests, and he's also an SEO wizard. In this video, we talk about what it takes to rank one on Google and how you can get many views on your articles on Medium as well as on other websites, and how you can make sure more people read your work. But before we get started, I want to know what are your thoughts on why do you think it's important to end up on Google search results? Because the way you answer this question might actually indicate where you are going to be in 5 years as a writer. So please let me know in the comments below what do you expect by ranking one on Google. So without further ado, let's get started with this amazing interview with Dr. Derek Austin. Hello, Dr. Derek. I remember when I first came across you on Medium, and yours was the first profile that had a GIF instead of a profile picture, and you were waving there. And I was so surprised. I didn't know anyone could have done that on Medium. And then when I looked into your profile, I saw that you had so many things to your name. You are a full stack developer, you are a writer, you are a physiotherapist. So that's really crazy. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you wear all these hats, and what's something that you're currently focusing on.
Yeah, well, and I guess it's great to finally meet you in person. We've been kind of online friends for a while, but this is our first time to really, do one of these interviews, and I've been wanting to for a while. So, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody out there. I'm Dr. Derek Austin. You can find me at drderek.com, and I've been writing on Medium for about 18 months. I really only started blogging because I was switching careers from 10 years in clinical sports medicine as a massage therapist and as a physical therapist back to developing websites full time. I've kind of been a freelance consultant for over 20 years professionally. So, ever since I taught myself a little bit of HTML back with HTML version 1.0, then I've been trying to do it for money and trying to make apps and doing all sorts of fun stuff out there. So, yeah, when I started writing on Medium, I just really thought, like, if I just explain programming, things I'm learning to people, then, jobs will just come in, everybody will find it, it's going to do great. And it was pretty weird because there was a little bit of interest in people working with me, but the vast majority of places I applied said, well, you're changing careers, right? I said, yeah, but I know how to do it. Look at my Medium blog. And I got a lot of feedback from programmers specifically that, writing about programming is blogging, and it's sort of a different skill. And so it's been really interesting to sort of stick with Medium for a while and then sort of use that to build back up my own freelancing business, especially the last year or so with the COVID pandemic. I really just doubled down on freelancing and doing it full time, and sort of running into what I think a lot of people who are kind of trying to get into tech run into, which is, well, obviously you don't know the skills and you don't know how to do it, and you need a portfolio and you need to do a bunch of free work for us to explain that you know how to program. So I've really managed to avoid that. I cut my living expenses because I relocated from my hometown of Richmond, Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C. on the east coast of the U.S. to Puerto Morelos, Mexico, just south of Cancun. And so now I live in a great tropical climate with my cat and just have a lot of fun building websites for people and writing about websites, digital marketing, SEO, and some of these other things online. So yeah, lately I've just been really excited that website performance has gotten super easy, kind of like never before, to build a website that loads quickly and isn't going to take 15 or 20 seconds to load like a lot of websites. So I've been offering that service to clients and kind of doing less writing lately, and that's been a nice change of pace. I've also been sort of thinking about what's the biggest bang for my buck with writing and with client writing for clients, and sort of how can I use my skills best with things like SEO.
That's super interesting. And I after we talked a little bit on Medium, and then I saw your session on Momentum 2021 about SEO, and then we connected on LinkedIn. And you have been pretty
Mhm.
active on LinkedIn so far, and I have been learning some strategies for you, especially regarding some hashtags. So can you share with us a little bit about what's your take on LinkedIn, using LinkedIn to build a brand for yourself?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is that social media platform that at least for me, like I thought I had to be on it, and it was just a resume, and that's all it was for. Was just sort of a longer resume if somebody wanted to look at it while I was applying for a job. And I think that's still how most people kind of look at it. But it is a proper social network, and it's a proper social network that's really full of people who are creating their own personal brands, who are freelancing and open for short-term and contract opportunities. And of course, it's always been really full of recruiters. And so as somebody who's applied to a lot of jobs and really run into things from the applicant tracking system and not getting through to sort of the decision makers, onto actually being in the interview and having trouble sort of communicating my experience because I'm into so many things. I have so many strong abilities that somebody who has a very narrow focus is going to have more trouble looking at that. I find that I've really sort of changed my perspective on LinkedIn in terms of finding people like you and me where we can kind of connect, and then we can do a couple little favors for each other, and we can sort of develop a professional relationship, and then some of those are going to turn into sort of online friendships, which are always cool. Some of those are going to lead to opportunities, and others just aren't going to do anything. But I don't think that happens on Twitter. It definitely doesn't happen on Facebook. I can't use Instagram anymore. It never really made any sense to me. Sorry, everybody in the world who likes Instagram and TikTok, but it's very distracting. There's a lot going on for me there. And so when especially the last couple of months, I've met some people who have sort of maybe showed me the ropes on LinkedIn. Like you said, sort of some of the hashtags can be useful. There's a company called Ship 30 for 30 that I haven't tried. I don't think you've tried either, but it's based on this premise of making a piece of content and putting it out there every day, typically sharing it on your choice of social media platforms. So you'll see a lot of hashtag Ship 30 for 30 stuff kind of out there all the time. And so, a hashtag like that one or anything like that people just sort of use regularly, whether it's a hashtag 100 days of code, very common for people learning programming. That kind of stuff can be a nice way of just getting your stuff seen by more people, especially on a platform like LinkedIn. And I think for anybody who wants to grow their personal brand, one of my friends, Sean Smith, is a marketing expert, and he's actually starting right now in May a creator mode on, or CMO, sort of online course similar to the Ship 30 for 30 structure, where he's showing people how to use these specific strategies on LinkedIn. Things like being on LinkedIn at the same time as your sort of friends and allies, so that you can really interact with each other and maybe have a better chance of getting picked up by the social media algorithms. and what type of content is going to do well. And one of the things he says that has really stuck with me and made me want to keep using LinkedIn is it's not always about like your customers, right? If I'm trying to sell writing, maybe you're trying to sell freelance writing, it's not necessarily about finding your customer, your writing client. It's about trying to find the people who influence your clients. And so the sort of people who influence the people you want to work with are on LinkedIn, and they tend to be pretty active there. And so if you're somebody who forms a relationship and maybe you end up on a cool interview like this, and then now your future client sees you and then hears about you that way. It wasn't sort of a direct thing. You didn't connect with them on LinkedIn, but it sort of got back around to them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, that you can get to be around people who influence the kind of people you want to work with. Because I had never actually thought about this consciously, but it's very true. When you collaborate with someone who has an audience of people who you are interested to work with, that can open many doors for you, and you wouldn't even know that you need those opportunities unless you get them. So, yeah, that's super valuable advice, and I definitely agree with that. So I remember watching this in your Momentum talk, that you wrote about 140 articles on Medium in 1.5 years, and you had over 2 million views. So I think that's, people who write on Medium would know that it's not easy to get 2 million views from about 140 articles. So can you tell us your secrets? How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, and my Momentum 2021 talk is still up on YouTube, so you can find that. I think
Yeah, I'll
I
leave
had
a
gotten
link
about 1 million.
in the description, because I think people would find it super useful.
Yeah, and I try to keep it pretty short and simple for people because the entire issue with SEO, search engine optimization, trying to get found on Google, is that people make it too complicated and they think there's some sort of magic involved. And the Google algorithm is extremely simple. I learned it in graduate school studying informatics in less than an hour in great detail. And it's a concept I can explain in 20 seconds. How Google works is if a random web surfer was browsing the internet, what website would they end up on? And how do they calculate that? Well, they literally act like a robot is clicking links randomly throughout the web. And they're going to be more likely to end up on websites like NewYorkTimes.com that have more links to them. And so Google ranks those websites, those specific pages, not even really the domains, higher, because a random web surfer would think they're better. And so that's the entire Google algorithm, is how many people link to your individual page or pages that link to your page, so that a random web surfer would find it. And that's the whole thing. And then the whole SEO side of things, keywords, keyword research, is a total waste of time. I can explain to anybody in 5 seconds how to find what you should write your next article about. Google something related to it. And when you Google it, then Google is probably going to give you some questions. And those questions are what you should write your article about. And those should be the title. Those should be what's called the slug, meaning the URL of the article. And that's really all you have to do. I can just give a quick example. This is something I was looking up last night. So I Googled how to get a fruit tree to spread out. And then if you actually look at the search results, what are you going to learn? You're going to learn that a video is what Google thinks I'm looking for, because the entire screen is videos. So if this is really the topic I want to write about, I should probably make a video, and I should make it with that title, because there isn't a video with that title. But let's say I want to do article. So I scroll down, and there's the people also ask section. And how do you control the size of a fruit tree? What happens if you plant fruit trees too close together? And those are what you should write articles on. If you care about SEO, if you want lots of views, and you don't have the exact title of a question that Google recommends, you're really not doing anything here. And for my specific question, how to get a fruit tree to spread out, it says there's 388 million results. There's no article with that title. So if I wrote on Medium the article, how to get a fruit tree to spread out, it really doesn't even matter what I would write. I almost certainly would be on the first page of Google for this particular search result. And that's all there is to it. And if you're doing anything other than that, or you're paying for anything, or you're working with an SEO person, you know what? Fire them. Don't do it. Don't pay anything more until you actually try that, until you actually write 5 or 10 articles that are in the People Also Ask on medium.com, not on your own domain, not on your company's site, and see how it does for you.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And I also remember you mentioned a very cool website. I think it was called whatpeoplethink.com, right? And that has
it is close. It's answerthepublic.com.
Oh, sorry. But it makes those really cool graphics where you can see what people are searching for. And I've actually generated a lot of ideas about book recommendation articles from that website, because it tells me what books people are actually looking to read. So I have written many articles based on that, and those have had really great external views. So I guess external view signifies that it was doing good on Google search. So that's super helpful. Yeah. But the question I had is that this works for very specific topics. But if someone is writing about, say, self-improvement, or say building a habit on Medium, there are already lots of articles on that topic. But again, like people say that in this world, very few things are original. People already have written about it, but your take is unique, so you should still write about it. So what should one do in cases like that? If they search on Google and they see a lot of articles, how do they make their article rank? Is it possible to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll preface this by saying that, we've talked before, you and I, that our writing styles are very different, because I have, I think, 1,200 drafts. And of those, I think 100 drafts are pretty much done. Like, I should publish them. I don't really get back to stuff necessarily. But for most people, it's the coming up with the right idea, and is this the right idea, and should I put my effort into it? And that's great. That saves you a lot of wasted effort. You won't end up with 1,200 drafts, but then you end up with what do I write about? And coming up with that and feeling like writer's block. And the trick is, nobody Googles self-improvement. Nobody in the history of the world has picked up a book that was called Self-Improvement. Oh, self-improvement. That's the book. This changed my life. What's it about? Self-improvement. There isn't a book, right? What are the big self-improvement books, right? Like Influence, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? What are those? Those are things you would put into Google, right? I mean, they're kind of old-timey. I'm not going to, how do you influence people? It sounds a little creepy now, but that's exactly how it works. And so if you're there looking at Google, like self-improvement, then you're not thinking very hard about what you personally, like what you just said, your own take, what are you trying to improve, or what have you improved, or what does the research say about it? Because you'll find 95% of the time, there is no Google article. There's no article on Google with the exact question you put in. And like you said, if you start using what are called search listening tools, things like Answer the Public that give you the Google autocomplete, the People Also Ask data, the actual what people are asking Google, instead of trying to guess from like the back end, which is sort of traditional keyword research, then you'll really not really worry so much about the competition, because it should be a pretty hard and fast rule. If you put in like how to do meditation into Google, because that's what you want to write about, and there's 18 articles that all say how to do meditation in that exact order, that's not going to be worth your time to write, because it's not an original idea, and it's not, almost certainly whoever types that into Google is going to have to search something else. because it's not quite there. So it's going to be something like, what's the first step for a meditation habit, or how long does it take to start a meditation habit? And when you do that one extra level, then it almost always kind of writes itself. And a tool like Answer the Public is awesome because you can literally type in self-improvement and it will give you questions like, what are the best books about self-improvement? And you could type that into Google and you're going to see a couple articles, and you could, instead of copying those, you could literally write the one that says, what are the top books for self-improvement? I read 10, and then that's your article. And you don't have to think about your headline. You don't have to think about if you're going to rank on Google, because it's almost certainly going to rank.
And Medium has a very strong domain rank, right? So if you write on Medium, chances are that your article is going to outrank the other articles if they are not on Medium.
Yeah, and I don't like the term sort of domain rank or domain authority, though I think it's a useful sort of mental model, because like I explained with the Google algorithm, it has nothing to do with domain. It's on a page by page basis. There's no evidence, and there's never been any coming from Google, that they actually rank domains, because what they do is they rank pages, and every domain has a home page, right? And so that home page is probably going to have a pretty good rank. And then that homepage is probably going to link to your article, right? So medium.com might link to where you're programming, where you're publishing, let's say in Better Humans. And then Better Humans, lots of things are going to link to that. Lots of things are going to link to Better Humans articles. Those are going to link back to that, linking back. And so you get all these sort of 1, 2, 3 step off links. And that's why an article on Medium is going to rank so well, because you're competing, if you try and start your own blog, against all these publishers, right? I think NewYorkTimes.com publishes, I read 2,000 pieces of original content every week between all of their blogs and everything. And so if on average any article gets one link to it, then NewYorkTimes.com is getting 2,000 links every week. And your private blog that you put out one article on is probably getting 0 links because it's not ranking on Google. How's anybody even finding it unless you already have an audience? And so Medium, because it's literally the only blogging platform like this, it's the only social media network that is searchable by Google, whereas Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are not, then you have this sort of huge advantage when you publish there, especially if you take it seriously and use it as a social media platform, and you're not just on there just trying to sell and just trying to break the Medium rules.
Yeah, that is really amazing. I didn't know about this concept, but it definitely is useful. So you also mentioned on LinkedIn that you do paid mentoring for writers and developers. So yeah, I guess my audience is comprised more of writers. So I am interested to know, how did you land mentoring gigs for writers, or in a more broader sense, if someone is looking to establish themselves as a writer of Medium, not just depend on the Medium Partner Program. Mentoring is a service they can offer if they have some experience. So how should they go about getting clients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mentoring is really something I recommend to everybody, because like it may be like one of the only good things that really like was happening for hundreds of years in Europe in the Dark Ages, is they had apprenticeship and mentoring. And that was probably like the only thing working in Western Europe from like 1000 AD to 1600 AD or whatever. And so I think it's a really valuable model, because in our modern society, we have all these formal education programs with almost no mentoring and almost no apprenticeship. And when you get a job, it's very unlikely to find a mentor or to feel like your boss is even better than you at the job, necessarily, who could even teach you anything if they wanted to. It tends to be much more adversarial, much more superficial, much more, hide everything you can from anybody because the corporate governance is going to come down. And it sucks. And you see that all the time with all the, whistleblowers and people reporting harassment, all these other things that happen, and the company doesn't support them. And the reality is, if you have a mentor, like that's a different relationship. And it can be hard to find at work. You might lose your mentor if you switch jobs or they switch jobs. So I think, anybody who's seen a little bit of success or been through something or has a really strong interest in something should really consider opening themselves up to mentoring others, because it can be volunteer. You don't have to charge for mentoring, but paid mentoring is awesome. So, I really recommend it to everybody, even if you don't necessarily feel like you have the experience. Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is you charge somebody for mentoring and you feel so bad about it, you give them their money back. Like, that's not really something bad, like it's not the end of the world. And so to find people who want mentoring, though, it can be pretty tricky. I do some volunteer mentoring through an organization called Start Out, which helps LGBT people who are looking for mentoring, especially in entrepreneurship and marketing, get connected with mentors with some experience. And there's sites and services like that out there. And then for anybody who kind of has a personal brand, whether it's through Medium or LinkedIn, you can get most of your paid mentoring, and I do, from just making it available and just letting people know. So like, if you have a little conversation with somebody and the responses on Medium, and they're really admiring your writing and they're telling you a little bit about what they're doing for writing, you can just bring it up. You don't have to sell them, but if they don't know you offer it, then they're never going to try to buy it from you. And so just having it, like the word mentor in your bio or something like that, or, mentioning it once in a while, making the occasional social media post that you're looking, for mentees right now, that you offer paid mentoring, then I think that's kind of the first step. And then from there, if it's something you really enjoy doing, you can start publicizing it or even turning it kind of into a class.
Right. And I really love this line that you said, if they don't know that you offer it, how are they going to buy it from you? So that's really cool. And I think many people who know, many of my writer friends, I know that they are really good at what they do. And they're also thinking of starting a coaching or a mentoring business, but they are afraid that they have this imposter syndrome, right? I think it's very common with people who are just starting out, because they have this sense that why should I do it? There are already people who are better than me who are doing it. So do you have any tips for people like that who are struggling to release their first course or their first paid mentorship program?
Yeah, absolutely. So, imposter syndrome is super common in anything where you learn it better by teaching yourself and through real world experience. And it seems to be a pretty universal human experience. And I think a lot of what we call imposter syndrome comes from the fact that we don't have apprenticeship. And a great example of that, right, is I have a bachelor's and a master's in bioinformatics, the application of computer science to biological problems like the Human Genome Project. And I didn't learn a single thing in a bachelor's or a master's degree, or a year studying abroad to a master's program, or a year of pre-doctoral education about building websites, or literally about doing any type of computer programming that anybody would ever pay me any money for. So you can understand that, I might come out, and unless I'm really arrogant, if I'm the least bit self-aware, I'm gonna feel like an imposter, right? Because I have these degrees, I'm getting jobs that maybe other people are better at, because I don't actually have the skills. I've had to teach myself everything about web development, about web design, about user experience, about accessibility, about web performance, about writing, about pitching, about selling. Literally none of that stuff have I had a good course on outside of things I've taken in the last few years just online? And so the first thing I would say is if you feel like you're an imposter, it's not you. It's a normal reaction to the feeling that you don't have somebody you trust. You don't have your own mentor who is letting you know, yeah, you're better. You're better than you used to be. And you're doing well. And it's just like learning a foreign language. If you learn with conversation partners and you guys never really give each other tough feedback, you're never going to get very confident. No matter how good you get, you're never going to feel very confident. But if you work with a Spanish teacher and every month you say, hey, how bad do I suck? And they say a little less, and you trust them, then you're not going to have the same imposter syndrome, right? You might still feel nervous and stressed, but you're not going to have this really deep-seated thing. So if you're really struggling with that, and you don't feel like you can offer it yourself, then maybe the step one would be finding a coach or finding a mentor of your own so that you can get the feedback from somebody else that you're making progress, that you are ready. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. A coach isn't going to be like, you're going to take the entire coaching market away from me. They're going to appreciate what you're trying to do and try and help you, right? That's their job. And I would also say that the other way to cure imposter syndrome is sort of how parents do it, right? If you ask any parent, no matter how much they prepare, do you feel ready for your baby? Or, hey, you have a baby. Do you feel ready? How's it going? They're going to say, no, it sucks. I have no idea what I'm doing. I worry all the time that I have no idea. And again, that's the same type of thing where, maybe historically in societies, especially before agriculture, you wouldn't have that experience. You would have had other people saying you're doing fine. And now if you have a baby and you're by yourself in your house, nobody's there to reassure you, and you're going to feel like an imposter. And so since even parents do it, even our own, parents felt that way, then don't worry about it. You just have to do it. And once you make that decision, just like a parent, once you start mentoring, the imposter syndrome goes away because you're going to see, I'm doing it. I'm helping. Wow, that went well. And when I was in massage therapy school, our teacher was awesome and gave us the advice to fake it till you make it. And a lot of people hate that advice and think it's terrible. That's bad advice. But it depends a lot on your perspective, because you can take it very literally and say fake it as in I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just gonna not worry about it. Or you can be a normal person and realize that fake it is a metaphor for that you need to have confidence in yourself, even if it's false, even if it's a front, because somebody else is depending on your confidence, right? Again, it's how parents act, right? They act really confident when they have no idea. They literally never had any idea. And so once you actually get out there and do a little bit, even if it's volunteer, you're going to get right over the imposter syndrome. And if it's too much and taking that first step is too much, then put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? Get your own mentor. And it's not going to take long before you're out there doing it yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with both your points, because when I was launching my first course, even I had this thing that why am I doing it? There are so many people who already have courses out there. And then I got a business coach, and literally like within 1 month, I felt I was ready. But obviously that fear was there, and I am not very good at talking to random people. I thought if I'm not able to help them, what would I do? But then when I started talking with my students, I realized that, yeah, this is actually going better than I expected. And these people also found value. So I totally agree that even if you don't have like 100% of everything figured out right before the first call, you can still go on and like fake it as in have confidence in yourself until you make it, and it's definitely going to happen. So yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
super valuable advice. So, like, before we wrap this up, this is a question that most of my audience wants to know. Whenever I have a guest, they always ask me to ask them this particular question. So, I'm going to ask that to you
Okay.
again. So, if you had to start writing on Medium today, but with all the knowledge that you already have over your 1.5 years of writing there. So, what are some things that you would do differently now compared to what you did when you were starting out?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question because I would approach it entirely differently. I wouldn't have been using Medium just to try to get a job. I would have taken it sort of seriously for its own thing. And I would only have written one type of article, which is, as you mentioned, I've written maybe 160 articles on Medium total, about 2.5 million views. To most people, that sounds really impressive. Like I have all these #1 featured snippets on Google, and I get all these views and stuff every month, but that doesn't make any money from the Medium Partner Program, and that also doesn't generate any business. And so if you, kind of as advice generally out there, if you want to do SEO and get lots of views, then you need to have one of two strategies in place to monetize it. You need to be using that to pitch clients, like I have 1 million views on Medium, so you can trust me. Or you need to be specifically writing about, like the services you sell. Like if you're a coach, you basically need to be writing the things that would make people want to coach with you. Right? Like we mentioned the, like how to find what to write about. We talked about books about self-improvement. So I Googled what are the best books about self-improvement. And if I actually look, there isn't an article with that title, but there's a people also ask, what books should I read for self-improvement? And again, like if you're going to try to generate coaching business from your Medium, then you should write, that exact title. And almost all of these are listicles. Listicles are actually, great. And at the same time, listicles aren't in the people also ask. So something like what books should I read for self-improvement? And then, you make it clear you've read all these books, and then somebody's going to get really interested in coaching. So that is sort of what I've learned on the SEO side of things. But I wouldn't really take that approach for my own writing, because what I would do if I was starting over today is I would just do a type of writing called brand journalism, where I'm finding compelling, interesting stories about people using brands, I write about tech and technology. So, about why decisions get made, sort of digging in, doing a little bit of journalism, investigative journalism. And those are the stories that people want to read. When stories go viral on Medium, they're almost always compelling stories, and they're almost never factual, dry answers to Google questions. And so they're very much a different audience. And since on Medium you get paid by your read time, then writing brand journalism, an author on Medium named Peyton, Peyton, has written about it and has a course on it, kind of explaining how to do it. But brand journalism isn't just the type of writing that's going to do best for you on Medium, but it's also the type of writing that you can sell to clients for the most money. And so if I was starting over today, then I would have from day one been looking at it in terms of, I want to use Medium to sell freelance writing to clients. And I'm only going to publish stuff that is something somebody would pay me money for. And sure, I can think of it as a blog and a personal blog and try all this stuff and feel really good to get into Medium publications and all this stuff. And that part can be really fun. But ultimately, what is fun is making more money for the same amount of work than you used to. That really, for me at least, is what's fun about that type of writing, about that type of work. Because if I want to be writing just for fun, I have some fiction I want to write, and it's not going to do well in Medium. So I'm not going to write it. And so then, I kind of, we talked about how many drafts I have and everything. So if I started over today, I would try to publish once a week or once every 2 weeks, and it would be every single time something that the company or brand I'm mentioning would want to pay me $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 for, and I would just be doing it for free. And almost certainly those brands would be contacting me, like, thanks for mentioning us. I'd say, I'm happy to sell you this type of writing. And that would be all I would have to do. for my entire personal brand. And not only that, I would be making and have made much more money from the partner program if I had 50 compelling stories instead of 160 mostly boring technical articles.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because I recently did an interview with Coach Tony, and he also said a similar thing that don't think of Medium as a way to earn money right now, but think of it as a platform to establish yourself as a writer off platform and what you really want to do with your career. So, like you said, if you started today, you would focus on getting more out of it and not just writing random articles. So, I think that is really helpful. And but yeah, brand journaling sounds really cool. I think more people should try it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably relate to this.
Hmm.
The most frustrating thing for me is to write an article that I think is better than normal, right? Like better than average. I spent extra time on it. Maybe it was hard to write. And it doesn't do well. It does worse. It does worse than average. And what people always kind of misunderstand, just kind of like how people misunderstand SEO as being literally anything other than the words in your title and headline. And, you know, if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me, no, Derek, you totally misunderstand it, that's fine. drderek.com. We can chat on LinkedIn. I'll meet with anybody. But the reality is that's the truth. And if you try that, if you try putting what Google says, as people also ask, as your next Medium title, you're going to be on the first page within a week or two. There's no secret there. There's nothing to learn. And it's the same thing with what does well on Medium. So if you want to do well on Medium, then it's so hard to stick with it when you think you're about to do well and you think you're about to do well, and then it just doesn't. And it always, at least for me, is the topic. And there's sort of the topics nobody cares about, like, you know, what my cat's doing today. There's the I'm answering people's questions on Google stuff. There's the sort of definitive guides, like I really did the research here for you sort of stuff. And then there's brand journalism. And each of those tends to be about a 10 times increase in engagement. And so if you start down here where maybe 10 people read my post about my cat, 100 people read my really dry technical article, 1,000 people are reading my definitive guide to something, and that's likely to rank on Google, and now I'm getting all those fun views I can brag about, right? But if I just write a brand journalism piece on literally any brand that somebody has heard of or is a good story, then I'm probably going to get 10,000 reads. And I'm probably going to not make pennies from the partner program. I'm probably going to make $10 to $1,000. And every time you go to that. And so people, like you said, worry a lot about, okay, I want to write about self-improvement. You know, I'm going to Google self-improvement and see what comes to mind. And it's never going to work out. So if you want to do what Coach Tony said, and you want to build your brand and get clients off of Medium, and maybe they're coaching clients, right? Then use SEO like we were talking about, right? Get people interested in you, interested in connecting with you, and have your little bit of a call to action. But if you really want to build your brand as a writer, you have to understand that the only type of writing that people pay money for are books, which, you know, most of us aren't going to qualify for because we're not, you know, big names enough, or it's going to be brand journalism. And why do people pay money for brand journalism? It's because it's the type of advertising that people want. They don't mind being advertised to if it's hearing about the design of the new Tesla engine or the inside the new Tesla factory or whatever topic it is. But if it's telling this compelling story of somebody who had a struggle and then found this solution and overcame it, and it's inspirational, then those types of articles are what people actually read all the way through. They share and reshare, and they do all this stuff that you're just never going to get with any other type of article. And, you know, you can still, even with all the changes on Medium, make a decent amount of money doing that. You just have to be really, loyal to that model and that approach. And you also have to understand that you might make $10 from the Medium Partner Program for that, but whoever is selling the course you're talking about might have paid you $2,000 to write that article. And that sort of perspective shift and sort of understanding that not only can you use Medium to launch your writing career, but you can post paid articles on Medium as long as you're disclosing your relationship appropriately, can really be a game changer in terms of, building a writing business, not just hoping to stitch a couple of things together and maybe doing some coaching, but actually having a writing business where your clients are coming back to you every 6 months wanting another $2,000 or $3,000 article.
That's a super, super great idea. And I think, yeah, like it has, like you said, that if you write a compelling piece about a brand with a proper story and proper structure, you're going to get internal views as well as a sponsorship. So it's like a win-win situation. And it's one of the surefire ways to establish yourself as a strong voice on Medium. So thank you for this
Yeah,
tips. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And
No.
I should just mention that just if you're writing any type of sponsored content on YouTube, whether it's for your business, your personal brand, just be really clear, with YouTube guidelines that, there's a paid promotion thing you can check off. But on Medium, it's even stricter because you can't just have your article brought to you by Coca-Cola. And so if there is a financial relationship, you do have to disclose that. And Peyton goes into it in quite a bit of detail. But something as simple as sort of a branded content disclosure, in the same way that if you were flipping through a magazine, you might see kind of like a glossy story and it might say branded content at the bottom. All that means is that the writer was paid to investigate the story. And really, there's nothing wrong with that. That makes sense, right? You're doing journalism. You get paid to do the journalism. But if you don't disclose it, then Medium can take your article off or delete your account. And apparently when Medium does that, they don't give you a warning. And so if you don't have your stuff backed up from Medium, there's like a download button, then you could be accidentally breaking the rules and then it just disappears. And so you do want to sort of keep that in mind, that that is always going to be the type of content that people want to read on Medium. You can go to medium.com/topic/popular and see the top stories, and half the time they're brand journalism. The person may not be getting paid for it, and typically on Medium they aren't, but just look in Fast Company, Forbes, Inc., almost all the time, those stories in there are paid brand journalism, right? You might call them puff pieces, but hey, those writers are making more money. So, what's wrong with that? And they're often pretty good pieces. They're pretty interesting. And so for somebody who really, was starting over on Medium today and wanted to know what to do, I would say, you have to do that, and you just have to figure out how to do it and figure out how to get those clients, because it's 100 or 1,000 times better than whatever else you could be writing about.
Agreed. I have never tried that, but you have definitely inspired me to try my hand at brand journalism and see how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you would be great at, but you often see in the trending on Medium, almost always like one of those stories is brand journalism. And so if you're really not sure kind of what I'm talking about here, then you can sort of look at that stuff and you'll start to kind of catch these trends, because it's things that sort of everybody thinks about. Like here's one, the worst Silicon Valley home renovation trends, right? I mean, it's not technically brand journalism, but those are big brands. Home renovation, Silicon Valley, worst, like making fun of things, right? Those are kind of three big brands. And if you start looking at it through this sort of broader lens, I think you'll see for your own writing, Anangsha, that some of the stuff you've had do well is actually kind of brand journalism, except the brand isn't maybe some airline. The brand is some concept like relationships or productivity or sleeping more, sleeping less, or cold showers or anything. sort of along those lines. Because when you have that sort of broad perspective, you'll realize that there is never any piece that does well in any publication, but especially on Medium, that isn't talking about a big brand in the broadest term sense of things, whether it's the coronavirus pandemic, whether it's talking about addiction or emotional regulation or social media or sleep. The stuff that does well is always these really big brands in the broadest sense of the word, and in the sense of the things that everybody kind of knows and cares about. And I would recommend that you try it, because I do think it's also something that once you've demonstrated to your clients a little bit, you can start selling them that service specifically as well.
Agreed. I'm sure it would inspire a lot of our viewers right now to at least look into brand journalism and kind of try and reverse engineer the trending articles on Medium and see what kind of structure and what kind of formatting works for such articles. So yes, definitely. So I guess that's all for this chat, and I learned a lot from you. I'm sure our viewers must have learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for making time for this, Derek, and thank you so much for your amazing insightful answers.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I've been really excited to be on one of your fun interviews for a while, and I'm glad we can have this chat. I hope it helps people out there. I'm sure people have a lot of questions, and more than anything, I just want to leave people with the message that, especially if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, yes, there's a chance you suck and you are an imposter, and maybe your skills are better for something else. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also a pretty good chance that you just don't have anybody in your life who's better than you at that thing, because how many of us really do, who you trust to give you honest feedback. And without that, you're kind of always going to feel like an imposter. And so if you either aren't going to be a mentor or get a mentor, the only other way to break through that is to see success, to see quantifiable success, whether it's in terms of paychecks or engagement on Medium or your business growing, whatever it is. And to get there, if you're not there right now, for example, with your Medium writing, then you really, and you've talked about this a lot on this very YouTube channel, you kind of have to do sort of postmortem. Like what worked well the last month, what didn't work well, what's still doing well from 3 months ago, and then look at it from a very broad sense. What about this topic is doing better? And focus only on that. So if you're trying to be a writer and you're trying to just succeed on Medium, then you really should only ever go back to your top 1 to 10 articles. Or if all of them suck, then your topics suck or your headlines suck. You just need to try these different approaches, and that's part of the learning experience. And the more you kind of start to experience and feel success, the more the imposter syndrome is going to kind of slip away, and the more confident you're going to be with things like Coach Tony recommended of expanding your business in all these different directions.
Exactly, that's very true. So thanks, Derek, for all your amazing insights.
Yeah.
Now that we know about it, SEO doesn't seem so hard, does it? Well, thank you so much, friends, for watching this video with me. It was super helpful for me, and I'm sure it must have been great for you as well. You can read all of Dr. Derek's articles from the link I left in the description of this video. You can go to his Medium profile, read his articles, and you can also connect with him on LinkedIn. So yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching it. And don't forget to let me know in the comments what interesting things you learned and how you plan to incorporate these in your next articles. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.